My first sort of question, really, I was just wondering, because I mean, Maladie is a fantastic character, a real dream for an actor to get their teeth into. When you read this script for the first time, you started reading about this role, you must have just thought, man, this is one I want to take on.
Absolutely. I mean, initially when I first got none of us got script, so we all got scenes to prepare for Joss and Nina Gold, and I knew there must have been something within the script to kind of, I don't know, to lead me into the thought of there being a few characters that maybe I could have been approaching to play. So I think that initially for me that piqued my curiosity. And I just wanted to know more, really. And I couldn't wait just to get into the room with Joss and just, ask him what the hell this character was and why she was there and, what did she mean and all the rest. So, yeah, it was so exciting to just read that scene because I had no clue what it meant. So I just wanted to meet the person who wrote it because it was so peculiar but so intriguing at the same time,
Yeah, because I guess usually only having a kind of scene to go on wouldn't be enough. Usually it'd be nice to kind of have more context, more kind of like understanding more about where the character goes. But I guess when you've got someone like Joss Whedon's name attached, that faith is already there, isn't it? I guess that you kind of just know, even though I've only got a small snippet of what this character is about, I guess you just kind of have that trust that it's going to be a lot more to them.
Absolutely. That was it. I guess it was all his name, but at the same time, we got a little blurb, all of us, as to, kind of the thoughts on character and the whole bedlam waif and speaking in jibes and riddles. And, so it was laid out before me and it was up to me to kind of try and pick this human apart, pick this brain apart. And maybe, the questions were, why does she speak this way? Why can't she string one sentence together? Why does her thoughts go off in different trajectories on a dime? And all that to me was kind of, I'd never, ever read that in a character before.
Yeah, and even though you've spent a kind of good long while playing her when you're making this series, do you think you've got much closer to understanding her yet? Because she's not the easiest character to fully get your head around.
I do, because I think the gift of Maladie is that there's always, she's always she's larger than life because she's ridiculing her former self. She hates that she didn't have a voice as a Victorian woman. She thinks that her husband adored her and loved her, but he's sending her off to the asylum every now and again. And I just think that I just tried to understand Sarah before I could ever understand Maladie. And I also tried not to worry about the dialogue. That was kind of last for me. I just wanted to understand like her rhythms and her breath. And I read a lot about psychosis. I kind of ticked off or crossed off a lot of things that she could have been a sociopath, which I don't think she was, as Sarah prior to going into the asylum. But I do think Dr. Haig going through ECT machines and lobotomies and also rape, going through all that changed her mind. He literally tore her brain apart. And that was what I tried to hone in on. And I kind of came to the conclusion that she was operating in a hypermania state most of the time. And through the research, it was almost like she became like her defense mechanism was almost to become a shapeshifter. That she was kind of like a teenager at one point or, a witch at the other point, and who she was at any given moment was determined by the situation that she found herself in. So it was always to bring it back to a truth, rather than making it, I don't know, a Harley Quinn, that it was like, I've been abused, let's go out on the rampage because this is a Marvel project. It was to bring it back to truth and grounding at the end of the day and understanding what she's fighting for and why she's fighting for. And that determines who she is. And, at that time, it's one vendetta against Haig. And also that she thinks she's been chosen. She thinks she's the chosen one and she wants answers. There was no kind of distractions for, with the internet or social media or anything, or it was just, these are her game plans. And that's all she's thinking about at any given moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you're studying the kind of breathing of the character. Is that something you've done before with a role, or was that the kind of first time you've tackled that kind of side to her, or to a character before?
Definitely the first side. I mean, in drama school, that's what we learn. So I actually went back to my drama school teacher to just for a few coaching sessions to understand, who she was as a child, as Maladie in Victorian times. Did she come from poverty? Was she in an orphanage? Did she watch her mum die at childbirth? And I think, all these for me made sense as to when it came to Effie, because Maladie, all she wanted to be was this strong vixen of a woman in Victorian times who didn't have a voice. So she relished playing Effie. She loved being in the lion's den and these people not understanding that she was Maladie, who is Sarah. It's all these women that I think that she's just loving the fact that she's got power eventually in her life, and unfortunately she has to undertake the persona of Maladie to achieve what she does, and people fall by the wayside as she goes along. But at the same time, I had to understand all that before I could even attempt Effie, because Effie there's still undertones of Sarah within there, and obviously Maladie, the glee, the relishing her predicament and what she's going to do by episode 5. She's sitting on this big spectacle and nobody knows.
Well, it sounds like you just did so much kind of research and got so deep into the kind of backstory and stuff. Was that did you find that you had a lot of freedom to bring lots of your own ideas to the character? Was that encouraged of the cast to sort of go out there and do all that sort of stuff? Or was that just something that you've always done, irrespective of the project, that you're just one of those people that really likes to create that kind of big story behind the role?
Every single role I have to, I relish the history. I played a lot of real life or real women that have lived, and there's lots of historic books and things that I can, things on the internet that I can draw from. But everything from, like, I even thought about Britney Spears, and how she was treated by journalists, and what that, that big breakdown with the umbrella and the shaving of the head, and Maladie would have went through exactly the same. That's when you gain some resilience as a human, I think, and understand that actually you're in charge. Billie Eilish, that was somebody else as well, just in her decorum and demeanor, and just that teenager, just kind of more so her outfits and the strength of her and her words at the age that she's at. Eileen Wuornos was somebody else. I watched a lot of documentaries on her quite religiously, and just understanding how she'd been just let down by society and the patriarchy without even being given a fair trial, and just and it was just dipping my toes into a lot of, sometimes it was hard because I'd end up, in gang rape in India or something, those awful stories that came out about, women on buses being abused. And so sometimes it got me into dark places that I just had to kind of phone a friend and go, this is still real life, right? Because that's the only way you can do something like this justice, or else there's no truth. You can't, I mean, my job is to act it, but I think the beauty in Maladie is that if you find that key to unlock her, then that's gold.
Yeah, well, that's the joy in being and doing what you do, isn't it? I guess it's not just turning up to set and just for a day becoming that person. It's the whole process, isn't it? Right from start to finish. It's the discovery and, like you said, finding the kind of truth. But in this instance, was it quite exhausting being in that headspace? And I mean, it sounds like, some of the places you had to go to and some of the things you had to research were the sort of stuff that I guess at the end of the day can be quite hard to switch off from.
Yes, I think especially during the opera scene, because I think that was 5 days of just me on stage. And even when they turned around onto the audience, and the majority of the audience were stunt guys and women, but I still had to perform for them. And Joss wanted and always said, Maladie's, you've got free reign with her, and I'm not going to, muddle your process. But these are the beats that you have to hit, type thing. So there was a lot of Red Bull consumed that week, just to keep, because Maladie's there as Maladie, but also performing at the same time. That's what I mean. It's the glee. She's, it's Johnny from The Shining. She's loving it. She knows that she's just about to pounce and kill everybody in the audience. but to leave that, I remember actually I stayed with my publicist that week, who's a dear friend of mine. And I think it was so nice not to go home and be on my own. And she's got a young daughter. So it was nice just to go home and be back into go back into normal life. But with Maladie, sometimes I find it hard because I've done 3 plays in my life, and it's always been lead characters, and I've been on stage operating at that frequency and that intensity for like 2.5 hours on stage, with only the interval as a break. And it's not stressful, but I think in hindsight, I wish I kind of gave myself a pat on the back more, instead of because it does leak into life. And I found maybe I've become a bit more anxious as a person through playing these characters. And I think now going forward with Maladie, when I flick that switch again, I'm not going to be so self-critical and put too much stress on myself. I've been there. I understand how to unlock her now. And I just need to be kind to myself and take that quiet time, because I think her mind, that was the hardest thing to understand in Maladie, and to root within my body is the thought changes. So I had to put that in my body and say a line going one way, and then, take a right-hand turn or change direction. And so that's, it's more so just being kind to myself and having my alone time.
Yeah.
I think.
That's really well. I mean, I think we're all a bit too self-critical, so I think that's a great, JJ. Because have you found that over the last year? Because I guess this last year we've all had this chance, haven't we? This year, just for a lot of it, spent indoors, spent alone, spent kind of in our own thoughts. Have you used that in a positive way in some ways? Because I don't know, but I've been going on loads of walks, and I think it's been a difficult year for many people, but there is trying to sort of take something positive out of it. And it's been quite good to be quite introspective for a while, I think.
Me too. I absolutely agree. And I think maybe in the past I've always ran away from me or who I am, and maybe that's why I do what I do, because I can soak up somebody else's headspace for a while. But I also feel that going through what we've all gone through as a collective the last year and a half, I think I'm going to find a strength in Maladie that I don't think was there before. And it's that contemplative side of just existing, and actually I've never played a character that I didn't think was redeemable, and I don't pity her. And I think she's got so much resilience within her. And especially I take my hat off to her more so now, having all of us gone through this, because she's obviously spent a lot of time alone, in the abuse by Dr. Haig. She would have been alone with her own thoughts in the asylum, she's going in preaching that she's the next Christ, and people are just going, yeah, you're in the asylum, you're mad. But, I actually feel for her so much more, having gone through almost the same, being forced to be in my own headspace and my own company for a year and a half. I mean, don't get me wrong, like the first lockdown, I was blessed to be up in Scotland, so I spent the whole lockdown there and was able to get out on proper walks and not see a soul for hours and hours. So I was blessed in that respect to not be confined to having a 1 hour exercise a day. That's the beauty of Scotland and the expanse of the land, I guess.
Do you find that from doing what you do and spending so much time getting into the head of people, and so because obviously you sound like someone who really takes that kind of process and that whole part of it really seriously, and I guess so often you're trying to understand the heads and minds of other people and the thoughts and feelings of other people, is it quite easy then to kind of not pay that same attention to yourself as a person? I guess, is that something that actors, because I guess you're spending so much time focusing on these other people's thoughts, these other characters' thoughts, that it can be easy to neglect yourself in a way?
So true. That's such a good question, Stefan, because I think when you're younger, I think I just wanted to please, and I was waiting for people to give me the go ahead to act, or, like you get a job, now's the time, rather than actually fully understanding why I do what I do. And a lot of it is to do with, the research and learning. Michelangelo, we're always learning, and I love that. And I love being a sponge, and I love soaking up, other people's headspaces and understanding cultures and why people behave the way they do, and it's a daily struggle for a lot of people. And also a lot of characters I play. And I think that's the difference. I think I come from such a, like my dad is such a beautiful human, but he's so simple at the same time. He's a farmer's son, and it doesn't take a lot to make him happy. And I think truly that's that's me. And I think I've maybe been seeking questions or answers to questions in my life that just need a simple answer, and actually I've pushed friends and family away at times because I think I have to do more. It needs the struggle, the desperation to find character and find this. Whereas actually I feel in such a great headspace to be able to undertake Maladie and life at the moment that I just feel happier generally in myself. And maybe that is to do with age, but it's nice to be conscious of it and conscious of needing to, like have a bath. That's a great thing. Like all of a sudden I love baths. Who knew? I used to hate it. I just used to get bored. I was like, next, I need to fuel my curiosity and just move, go 1,000 miles an hour, which is what my mum does. But I think, playing a lunatic, you just have to kind of give yourself a bit more space, generally.
You sort of mentioned your parents, just wondering about like family and stuff when it comes to like, because when you're in this kind of series, how's it kind of been? Because I guess usually you might have all gone and watched it together, you might have gone to your parents' house and watched it, but I guess obviously with all the social distancing and stuff, it's been quite tricky. But in some ways it's been quite nice knowing that you're being in this TV show and this TV show being on air. I guess in some ways it does connect you to your family and friends that you've not been able to see over the past year.
Oh, definitely. My mum, actually, unfortunately, she's not seen it and probably won't for about a good 5 months. She's gone to be a maitre d' in this pub on the west coast of Scotland, so it's a dream of hers. So she'll see it when she sees it. But she's a big fan, and I think now finally, like there was, I think, the Scotsman or something I did, and my dad, picked it up, and I think he's proud in that respect. He needs a bit of a kind of not conclusion, but he needs to see something in writing to go, oh, okay, that's it. He's a bit of a pessimist, so he's like, don't say anything until it's signed or anything like that. But I think they understand now, and I hope they're proud.
Yeah, well, they should be. After it was a fantastic performance, but I was wondering too, because it was obviously a great ensemble, but it must help so much when you've got, is it sort of Gemma Jackson did this incredible kind of production design and stuff. I mean, it transports the audience, but how helpful is that to yourself as an actor? That because it must help transform you into that place, which then must make it easier to get into the headspace of the character.
Yes, all great questions. Absolutely, she's just a genius. And just down to the minute details and the intricacy of even Penance's workshop. I remember the first time that I saw that and I was like, mind blown. I literally was just like, this is like, you can't not help but feel immersed and feel that you're in a different world when you walk into that. And just be so appreciative of everybody's craft and the artistry that goes into that. And also on top, everybody is super lovely. I think it's the nicest crew and cast I've ever been involved in, and that stems from the top, the hierarchy, and that was from day one. That's my experience anyway. And and Gemma is just like, and she's quiet, but she was always around, and I mean, it speaks for itself, doesn't it? And you're there, and you're going, oh, this is the world, and because there's so many bits and bobs to kind of play with and to see, there was kind of no acting required. I much prefer that than CGI, the moments of, that you're talking to a rugby ball on a stick type thing.
But that's what well, when you're sort of kids and I was running around, because obviously when I was younger, I used to love playing like sort of standing behind doors with my fingers like a gun and stuff like that. But acting is the world of make-believe. It's all play, isn't it? And I guess when you're on a set like that, it must tap into that childlike quality and kind of remind you in some regards of why you got into this in the first place.
Absolutely. I know. And I so I don't know why, but I think my mum was a childminder when we were young. So I was always, for a period of maybe about 3 years, I was always around 6 children, I guess. And we used to put on a lot of plays, thinking back. I've not thought about that for a while, but yeah. And I remember like at Christmas, I used to love Jerry Halliwell. So that was, I always used to play one of the Spice Girls like every Christmas and things. So I guess maybe stemming from that, and because I didn't really get into it early on, and I was grateful that actually my grandfather paid for me to go to this drama school on a Saturday. So it kind of, and I met a really great teacher there, and she was so supportive, and it was quite cathartic at the time. My parents were splitting up, and I think everybody has trauma from that. But yeah, I'm not saying I'm from the most loving family in the world. My dad still comes over for Christmas, everything's there. But I think it's taken them a long time to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, if they will ever understand that,
Yeah, but that's sort of generational thing, isn't it? I always feel like, even because I'm a freelance film journalist, and I guess our parents are from an age where everything was much more like, you leave school, you'll go and get a job, you'll make money, you'll buy a house, and then you'll have a kid, and everything kind of followed this trajectory, which now doesn't really exist. So it can take a little while to kind of convince your parents that you're kind of, what you're doing is worthwhile. I've had that anyway. So yeah, that does make sense.
Yes, we'll be proud of you too.
Yeah, thank you. But would you reckon there could be more Nevers? Because I mean, it is one of those series of such an array of great characters that you do hope, well, I hope that there'll be more in the kind of pipeline. Is it something that you'd like to do again?
Definitely. Well, we're in production. I don't know if you knew. Yeah, so we're in production for season 1, part B, so episodes 7 to 12. So I'm actually speaking to the writers tomorrow. So I'm going to get in the writer's room, which I'm so excited about, and Philippa Goslet tomorrow as well, and just to talk about Maladie, just where we see her going, and because I feel it's the rise of Maladie, but that's me. So that's in the bag anyway, and touch wood about season 2, and I guess we'll find. I don't know when. I think they have to tell us by, I don't know, at the end of the year or something. So fingers crossed. There's just so many avenues you can take and go down, and and I really hope that, I don't know, I feel like I would love some screen time with Penance, Maladie and Penance. I think she'd be curious as to why Penance wanted to save her.
No, I'd like to see that. Yeah, but in the meantime, though, Spencer is a really exciting project. I'm a huge fan of Pablo's. I think everything he's done right from the start of his career has just been incredible. So to see him tackling this story is something I'm so looking forward to. What was he like to work with? I know I've interviewed him before at the Berlin Film Festival a few years ago, and I've just taken with the way he speaks about his craft and the way he approaches filmmaking. He must have been a fantastic director to work under.
Oh, he was so immersive, and the eye that he has, and it's so lovely to get projects like this, which is like a passion project, and that reminds you why you do what you do. And actually the Nevers, even though it's a huge conglomerate, but HBO is, actually that was a passion project, and we were severely looked after, but we were gifted the time and space to chat about character, process, rehearse. And it was the same with Pablo. Like, he gifted us all time to understand why we were all in this piece, because it's quite it's a visionary piece there's not a lot of words in it, actually, compared to like a normal feature film. It's quite it's visionary, but aesthetic, and it's quite like that. It's very, the colors and the tones and what he strips away is just as poignant as what is relevant and within a scene. And it was nice to watch him and Kristen work, and she just had blinkers on. She was just fully immersed too, and that was the gift of her. But it's going to look absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. But I was wondering, because I know this is like a silly question to ask, because it's literally like your job to kind of buy into it. But when you're on set with Kristen Stewart and she's playing Diana, do you see Kristen Stewart in her, or does she? Because I guess obviously there's all the prosthetic, there's the makeup and stuff, whatever, to make her look just like Princess Diana. But when you're kind of there in the same room as her, do you see only Diana and see the character, or do you kind of see the movie star behind her as well? If that makes sense.
Don't see the movie star. I think people are just going to root for her playing Diana. Because of obviously, and Wakina, the hair and makeup designer, she's like we've all seen pictures now, she's done such a great job. But with Kristen, it was again, it's the tempo of character, that was just so different. And I think we hung out only a couple of times out with set, and Kristen's she's a cool cat. And she's just such a lovely human being and just super chilled. And whereas Diana in this is way more neurotic than we've ever seen her before, picturized on screen anyway. And I think Kristen has done that justice.
Yeah,
definitely.
No, I can't wait to see that. But I was just going to ask, have you got used to seeing yourself yet on screen? You know, like obviously you've got the Nevers, and then but Spencer's obviously going to be a big old theatrical release and stuff. Has that got normal yet to sort of sit in an audience member and see yourself, you know, huge up in the big up on the big screen?
No, especially as Maladie, because I'm like, what the heck? Being like dragged through a bush backwards. I'm like, what were we thinking, Chris Blundell, makeup wise? No, not really. And I think I've actually taken on this role. It's a new BBC Kudos comedy that I'm going to do for a few weeks, shoot the pilot before this, as a challenge, because I've never done comedy this way before, especially leading a program. So this is something for me that that'll be the one for me that I'll go, okay, you're a good actor, you're not a good actor. It's all in this new comedy, basically. But no, I can be objective, because sometimes I like to trial things, and sometimes I like to know if I can watch myself and know that I'm truthful and that what I meant was coming across, you know. And especially with Maladie, because she's so, you know, she requires a special task force, you know, that are going to kind of try and take her down. But she's just so big and bold, and as long as I understand the truth within that, then it translates, and I'm glad it has, and I think it has anyway.
Absolutely. But my final question before I sort of head off, but I was going to ask, because each of these characters, all of these projects we're kind of talking about, they're all quite different from the next. Is that a kind of conscious move on your part to keep trying different characters in different types of movies or different types of series and different genres to kind of test yourself and kind of try your hand in different things? Or are you just kind of following, you know, where the good scripts are and the good stories, and it just so happens that everything's a little bit different? Because at the moment, it seems like and I mean this is the biggest compliment, but it's quite hard to pin down what type of role you play, which is a great thing, and something that a lot of actors and actresses can struggle with. But it seems you've got a real kind of eclectic range of characters under your resume so far.
Yeah, that's a great question as well, because I you know, albeit things might change, but I've still had to fight for the last 3 jobs that I've got, you know. It's not like, oh, here's an offer on the table, and it makes me feel good, you know. It still does, that I know that I'm fighting for that opportunity, I guess, and just to do the characters justice. And I think it's all down to, you know, how much you put in, but you get back. And I slaved away. This is 2 years that I've been in Maladie's headspace, and I know, you know, other actors do the same, but it's one of those ones that it's just, yeah, the more you know, if it's a great script, everything you need to know about a character's in there, you know. And I always come from a place of truth, and I'm when I work, I actually take a long time to learn lines, but I think that's a great thing, because I think I go over it so much that it becomes me, and it's instilled in me, and it doesn't feel fake when I say it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, like hundreds and hundreds of times I'll go over text, not just like I pick it up in the morning and that's it, and make sure I try and make bold choices that you can just throw away at the end of the day too. And I think that's why I want to do comedy, because I think I'm going to have to be more throwaway and have to be more, you know, my improvisation skills will be tested, put it that way.
Yeah. But I love this. I think it sounds like I've got a fascinating kind of quite meticulous kind of approach to the way you do your craft and your job, and I think it's reflected in your good performances. So yeah, carry on. So I'm looking forward to seeing this comedy now. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think it'll be announced soon, because we start in like 3 weeks. So yeah, I think it'll be a good one. Another mad character again.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they're usually the most fascinating to get your head into, I suppose. So, but thank you so much for your time today, Amy. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you.
Yeah, I've loved this chat. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey You Guys.